with you, Lord. You've answered a million prayers that I forgot to thank you for. I just came to talk with you, Lord. Maybe tomorrow there'll be trouble and sorrow and 1,000 teardrops may fall, but until I face tomorrow's task, I'll have no special favor to ask. I just came to talk with you, Lord. Many times, Lord, I've troubles brought me to my knees, but I just came to talk with you, Lord. I had no selfish motive in mind. I just want to talk with you, Lord, about all those other times. I just came to talk with you, Lord. Maybe tomorrow there'll be trouble and sorrow and 1,000 teardrops may fall, but until I face tomorrow's task, I'll have no special favor to ask. I just came to talk with you, Lord. I just came to talk with you, Lord.
James, if you have your Bibles, would you turn to the book of Joshua chapter 1 today? Joshua chapter 1, and I'm going to talk about godly strength. Joshua chapter 1, and if you would look to verse 1. Joshua chapter 1, verse 1, talking about godly strength. In the Navy, and so he was an athletic type person, but then even later in his years he was just a very physically strong person. Of course, the last 7 or 8 years he had declining health problems and things like that, but he always came across to me as a very physically strong person. And so I want to talk about a strength today that's not really physical strength, but I want to present to you as godly strength. And you know, it's not like something we can acquire by practicing or by hard physical labor. You know, it's something that really comes from the Lord. It's the godly strength that we need really as a Christian to carry on day after day. And I think there are a lot of people today that were once physically strong. Now, the interesting thing is, as we get older, we lose some of that physical strength. I mean, age does that to us, and things happen, our health declines, and so we're just not as strong as we were when we were a lot younger. But it doesn't have to be that way in our spiritual life. But I'm afraid there are a lot of people today who feel like, as they get older, as they age physically, they feel like their spiritual strength is waning. But that doesn't have to be the case. And I want you to realize, we could be more active and more spiritually strong today than we were when we were in our youth. And so that's what I want to focus on, is the idea of godly strength. And we're not talking about, the strength to open a new jar of pickles. This is spiritual strength. And some of the things that we face in life really we cannot be victorious by physical strength. We have to have godly strength. That's what God, throughout His Word, talks about, His strength. The psalmist talked about it. He says, my strength and my help comes from the Lord. The Bible gives several indications where man looks upon physical strength. It talks about, when warriors go into battle and how important it is for them to be physically strong. And that's brought in. The Bible talks about, and of course Israel was really not allowed to do this, but a lot of armies based their strength upon their horses, the number of horses they had, and the number of charioteers they had, and things like that. But not so with God. And so He wants us to understand that our strength, the strength that we need, even physically, but mainly spiritually, has to come from God. And if we don't have that, we set ourselves up for a spiritual faith. And I don't know what, maybe it's the lack of activity, maybe it's in our spiritual lives, maybe it's just the constant pressure that we face in our lives today. But many once physically or spiritually strong Christians don't seem to possess that strength anymore. And that's really not God's fault. And it's really not the church's fault. When we get to look at it, it comes back to us. And I want to talk to you about three things today when we look at the idea of godly strength, three things that have come from our passage, I believe, and three things that we need to realize if we want to possess godly strength. The first thing I would tell you is strength that comes from following God's plan. Now, verse 6, he talks about a plan that had been put in place several hundred years prior to this point in time. But he said, be strong and of good courage, for unto the people shalt thou divide for the inheritance of the land, which I swear unto their fathers to give them. So this goes all the way back to Abraham, when God promised Abraham that the promised land. And so we've come to this point now. And so God has a plan, I believe, for all of our lives. And for us to follow that plan or fulfill that plan or carry out that plan that God has designed for us, we're going to have His strength. We often are given a position or a job or a task to do or a challenge, and we don't feel like that we can do that. Maybe it's teach a Sunday school class or sing a special or do something like that in the church. But I want to tell you, when God calls you, He gives you what you need, the strength that you need to equip you. And so you need to realize that we need the strength to follow God's plan for our life. And so there are a lot of people, a lot of Christians that don't seem to have a purpose in life. They've been given a purpose, they've been given a task, they've been given a job or a challenge or a life or career, whatever you want to call it, in their spiritual life, and they just don't seem to possess the strength to carry it through, to stay with it. A lot of people start things and don't finish them, and I want to tell you, it doesn't have to be that in our spiritual life, and it shouldn't be that way. And so we need God's strength that He can give us in order to follow His plan for our life. That God was telling Joshua, this plan was given at least 400 years, but more like about 500 or 600 years when you go back to Abraham. They spent 400 years in Egypt. But when you think about this, God had given this was the plan for Israel since the beginning of them as a nation. And several occasions they had to carry out that plan. 40 years prior to this point, they were brought to the Promised Land and they refused to go in. Their leader Moses, because of his disobedience to God, he wasn't allowed to go in. And these people knew the plan for their life. They knew the plan for Israel, and yet they refused to follow that plan. God said, I'm going to make you successful. I'm going to make you prosperous. I'm going to bring you into the Promised Land. They knew all that, and they still refused. And so what I want you to understand today is that God calls us, He equips us, He gives us gifts, He gives us talents. And it's kind of a shame that so many Christian people that have been Christians for so long are still looking for God's plan for their life. I mean, He's given you a job, He's given you a family, He's given you a home, He's given you several things, and they still don't know what God's plan is for their life. And for some of you, for some of us, it's to do what we've been doing, what God has given us many, many years ago. And so we need the strength to continue to follow the task until it's over. And so, we're thinking, well, I wonder what God's plan is for my life, And it seems like there are a lot of people in that position today when He's already given them things for their plan. He's already really laid it out for them. All they have to do is be committed and faithful to God's plan for their life. If He's given you a family, then you be faithful to raise your family. If He's given you a spouse, be the best spouse you can be. If He's given you a job, a career, whatever, follow that through. Sometimes God puts these things right in our lap, and we refuse to look upon them as coming from the Lord. And so I want to encourage you today, realize that. Some people after years and years and years of being a Christian, they're still looking what it is God has for them, and He's already been doing it. He's already given it. A second thing I would tell you today is that we talk about strength and godly strength that comes from obeying God's word. Now, if you look at verses 7 and 8, that's exactly what God is telling Joshua here. He's talking about His word. And we need strength to be obedient to God's word. It seems like everywhere we turn today, people are changing the rules, are trying to. They're trying to change the rules. One of the things that's happened in the traffic laws or the traffic rules in the last few years, and I don't know that we have any of those traffic signals in our town, but I know they do in Tyler and probably Longview and certainly in the Dallas area, but is the protected left turn. Now, used to you had a green arrow, was a protected left. You had a yellow arrow, and then a red arrow. You could not turn left on the red. But now what you see today is a blinking yellow arrow. And when people see a yellow light, that means speed up, doesn't it? And so you see that blinking yellow, and you say, "Oh, I've got to get through the intersection before the light turns." But you don't realize the oncoming traffic, they have the right of way. There's been a lot of accidents because we haven't learned that quite yet, like we need to. That blinking yellow doesn't mean it's about to turn red and you better hurry. It means the traffic is coming at you, and you better not try to turn in front of it. And so we look at God's laws and we're thinking, well, these rules have changed. I'm not up on the latest rules. God's laws and His rules and His precepts haven't changed. And so not only do we need the strength to follow God's plan for our life, we need the strength to obey His precepts for our life, the rules and the commandments He's given us. They haven't changed. But everywhere we turn, people are trying to change the Bible and change the Word of God and make it fit our schedule, and make it fit our life, and make it fit our pleasure, what we want to do. We've had to change just the way we do things. And even do things in church. And you know what God says in His Word about the church? Forsake not the assembling of yourselves. Now, how do we do that if we're right in the middle of a pandemic and we close our doors for a certain amount? How do we do that? Well, that's the way we always do it. We use the telephone and we use the mail and whatever we have to do. We just check on one another. And so I'm just saying, just because the rules have changed in a lot of ways that we do life, doesn't mean God has changed the importance of the church.
Amen.
Of serving Him. Of following His Word. And so, there's a lot of things that I think that we face today that probably our grandparents did not have to face in the area of morals and decency and what is right. And our problem is not that we're struggling with that. Our problem is that we've taken things that are decent and holy and made them common and unclean. That's what's happened. And so we see all kinds of issues that we deal with today that really, if we go back to what God said about life and about what's true and what has value and what has morals, we wouldn't have the problems that we have today. And we would be so confused about what is right and wrong. So we need strength. When it comes to godly strength, we need strength to be obedient to God's Word. And it just seems like everywhere we turn, we want to change the rules. We want to change the laws. We want to change what God meant when He said that. When you look at the Ten Commandments and God says, "Thou shalt not," what does that mean? That means, thou shalt not. Don't do it. Don't try to change it. Don't try to look for a loophole. And then Jesus went further than that. He said, listen, he said, you know, it's not that we commit the act, but when it takes place in our heart, we're already guilty of the sin. So you have to realize that. So when we talk about strength, we need God's strength to accept and to obey His Word for our life. And some of us have trouble doing that. My mom and dad would tell me things, and they said, don't do this, and I would look for, I could even tell my mother's one time. I told her, she told me not to do this, and I told her, but so-and-so, and this was another adult, said, come on. And you know what? It didn't matter. That it was another adult that told me to go ahead and disobey my mom. The fact is, I still disobey. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we think, it's like other churches are doing this and other Christian people are doing this, so why can't I do it? Because God said that we're not to. Or we can turn it around and say, there's some things that we are supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be involved with. And we say, well, things have changed and people don't do it this way anymore. People don't do these things anymore. And I just think that's false. That's wrong. It's back to our heart. So we need God's strength to follow His plan for our life. We need God's strength to be obedient to His Word, which a lot of us have trouble doing that. We take scriptures that really don't even are not even compared to one another and try to make them pit against each other, so we don't have to. We can make the whole system null and void if we try to do that sometimes. And so we need God's strength today. Only His strength will help us. We need His strength when it comes to realizing His presence. And what did He tell Joshua? He said, I will never leave you or forsake you. I will always be with you. This should give us encouragement. This should help us to be strong in the Lord, knowing that God is not going to leave us. He's not going to forsake us. He hasn't done it yet. He's not going to. And so if we have a task to do, if we have a job to do, if we have His commandments to follow, then He's going to be right there with us. He knows that, and we know that. And so we can be faithful to Him. I tell you, we're just tired. It's just something about serving Christ, especially for older Christians and Christians who've been a Christian for a long time. It's not even the strength to pick up something heavy. I think it's the strength to follow the task through, to go for the endurance of the race, or whatever you may want to call it. So many people they just drop out. They just get weary. When you look at the book of Malachi, and God was hammering on these folks in the Old Testament book of Malachi. And these were His people, and they had disobeyed Him. They were looking for loopholes when it comes to worshiping Him. When they were bringing their sacrifices, they weren't bringing the best, but they were bringing the sick ones, and things like that. And God, He rebuked them. He said, listen, He said, you need to think about what you're doing. And He would make an accusation. He said, these old sick cows and cancer-eyed calves and things like that, you bring it to the worship house to give as a sacrifice. He said, give it to the governor, give it to the leader. He wouldn't accept it, but yet you bring it to God's house and expect Him to accept it. And the thing that they had to do every day or every week or every month or every year, time after time after time, He says that they say, what a weariness it is. We're just tired of doing this. We do this over and over and over and over and over again, and we're just tired. And so they begin to rebel, and they begin to disobey, and they begin to look for ways to skimp and to cheat what God had required. And then he would accuse them and say, "Y'all, this is your action." They say, "Well, we haven't done that." He said, "Yes, you did. This is the way you do it. This is the way you disobey." And I think sometimes when God's Word speaks to our heart, and we realize that He's speaking to us, we're like, wow, we're not doing that. We love Him. We care about Him. And then He would say, how can you say that? And then He can lay out a long list of things and ways that we have cheated Him and disobeyed Him. And so we need strength today. We need godly strength to just keep going. Just keep going. It's kind of like a new mother who has a new baby, and she's just tired from changing all the diapers and all the feedings and all the things that mothers have to do with newborns. And kind of just for a moment lose the sight of the purpose of raising a child, the purpose of taking care of an infant. And I think it's like that with our service to the Lord. Sometimes we lose sight of what the benefits are and what the final result will be. And when God told Joshua, He said, "Listen, I want you to follow through with these things, and I want you to depend on me, and I want you to be obedient to my word, and I want you to go into the promised land and possess it. It's already yours." And He said, if you'll do the things, I'm gonna make the way prosperous for you. If you'll accept this challenge and be obedient to my word and realize that I'm with you, I'm gonna make your way prosperous. You're gonna succeed. And I think we're satisfied sometimes with failing. I think we're satisfied sometimes with not doing our best, and I think it's an excuse that we learned probably a long time ago. When you're driving down the highway, and you come to, maybe it's in a work zone, or maybe it's an area where something's going on, and the speed limit drops down to 50 or 45, and so it says 50. Don't you go 55? It says 45. Don't you fudge a little bit and go 50? Most people just do that. And so you tell a child, don't do this, and it's automatic he hadn't thought of it until you told him not to do it. And sometimes I think we never really grow that. God has given us some things that we need to be adhere to and listen to and be obedient to. And just because He says it, we say, well, we're going to fudge a little bit. We're going to fudge a little bit. So I want to encourage you to be strong in the Lord. And you say, well, I just don't see the need of that. I don't have the strength of that. That's why we need God's strength today. That's why we need to depend on Him. Especially in the day that we live in today. When so many people are just, and they don't realize, they just don't realize. I tell you, one thing that age does when we talk about physical strength is that you can't do what you used to do, but you don't realize it until you have to try to do it. When I was a kid working at the feed store, a teenager, we had 100-pound sacks of feed, and something like wheat shorts. A lot of people fed hogs wheat shorts, and I remember getting a 100-pound sack of feed and throwing it on my shoulder, and grabbing another one in my hand, and walking outside and throwing it back pickup. And my boss would say, "Don't be doing that." I said, "Get that dolly over there," but just because I could do it. And I know that she'd say, "Don't be doing that," We'd like to make people be inspired, be awed at our strength. But then, it got to where I looked down at the 25-pound sack of chicken feed. What? You go to the grocery store and get a 25-pound sack of dog food, you got to have help to get that thing in your buggy. So I'm just saying, things change, and our physical strength, it kind of goes away as we get older. And I think we just expect our spiritual strength should do the same. And that's not the case. Moses, when he died, after bringing the people as far as he did, and after all what he went through in Egypt, he was just as strong as when he started his journey. Scripture says that. And I think there are a lot of Christians today that think, as I get older, I'm going to get weaker in my spiritual. I'm going to get not as strong in my godly strength. And it doesn't have to be that way. God doesn't want it to be that way. You can be stronger in your spiritual life today, and you should be, than when you started this journey. We've had a lot of opportunities to take care of things on our own. Paul talked about this in the New Testament. He talked about churches and things like that. And we've been Christians a long time, and when there's a problem or when there's an event or an issue, we ought to be able to just take up the mantle and continue on. We ought to be able to continue to grow and spiritually mature, no matter what's happening. And I've always felt like that should be the case now with this pandemic. A lot of people just quit. They quit because someone told them they had to. And we ought to be stronger now than in March when we started this thing. We ought to know more of God's Word and have more of it memorized and be able to use God's Word better. We ought to be closer to the Lord better than we ever were. But some people have used it as an excuse. I hope you're not one of those. But some people have used this as an excuse to take a break from walking with the Lord. And so God told Joshua, if you'll do these things, if you'll obey His word, if you'll realize His presence, and if you will follow this way, He said, you will be successful. You will be prosperous. You will be prosperous. I'm going to do some funerals probably in the next few years of people who were faithful church members, maybe even in this church, and they're not today. And that's a sad state when you get to that point. You know what I'm saying? For whatever reason. I'm not talking about health issues or sickness and things like that. But, you know, there's going to be people that will call and say, you know, they were members of your church a long time ago, and would you come and do the service? And, you know, I'll go and I'll do and I'll try to help the family. Because that's what God has caused me to do. But I'm just saying, think about that. Think about that. And so I want to encourage you today. God has given us a plan. He's given us some rules to follow. And we need to realize that He is present. He is with us as we take each step of our Christian walk. And because of that, we ought to be strong today. We ought to be strong today. Stronger than we were when we started. And if we're not, something's wrong. Now, you can blame it. You can look for blame and all this kind of thing, but it comes back to us. So I want to encourage you that we need godly strength, especially in the times that we live in today. Paul said we don't wrestle with flesh and blood, but unseen things, supernatural things, and that's why we need God's strength. So I would encourage you to depend on that today. You know, one of the things that some people, even still today, are trying to do is attain eternal life, attain heaven, attain salvation by their own works. And you know, it was brought out at the funeral last week. Brother Black said, you know, he read the Bible, and he taught Sunday school. He was on the youth committee for years and years and years. He was a deacon and chairman of the board of deacons. He worked with the church bus ministry and just all these things. But that's how about these? What he realized and what you need to realize today. It's not what you've done, but who you know. You understand that principle? We understand every other area of life. It's not what you can do, what you know, but it's who you know. That's how you get to where. When it comes to eternal life, when it comes to heaven, I mean, you can do all kinds of good things. You can be a church member. You can teach Sunday school. You can serve on any kind of board, and even stand in the pulpit. But it's not what you've done, but who you know. And that person is Jesus Christ. And my friend, if you don't know Jesus as your personal Savior, you're depending on your good works, whatever. There may be church things, Christian things. But if you don't know Christ, you need to trust Him. You need to accept Him as your Savior. It's not what you've done, but who you know. And that's why we all stand equal at the foot of the cross. That's why Jesus died for all of us. His blood was shed for every individual, so that you could be saved. And I hope you realize that today. That's the first step you need to take. Now, the Christian growth and the godly strength and those kind of things, certainly we need those things. Those come after we know Christ. Those are when we learn personally about Him. And so all those will come later. But if you don't know Christ, I pray that you'll trust Him today. My friend, if you are a Christian and you've just given up for whatever reason, I pray you rededicate your life today. God hasn't left. He's still on the throne. He's still giving us the strength that we need if we depend on Him. Would you pray with me, please? Father, we thank you for our time together today. Lord, you know every heart, every situation today. Father, you know those that are hard-hearted and those that are weak and those that are not spiritually strong. And Father, I ask that you would touch their hearts today, change lives, and help people realize that they need you. Some of us are physically strong and we can do a lot of things under our own power. But one thing that we cannot do, never have been able to do, is to save ourselves. And I pray that you would save someone today, someone who calls out to you, that you would hear their call, hear their prayer, and change their lives. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you for the power and salvation that He gives. We pray this in Jesus' name. Stand with me, please.